started seeing this vision and I was like, I don't think I want this life. And I realized that I was on a path that it wasn't my passion. I ran out of that room and I was starting companies that were failing. I got to a point where I was over 6 figures in personal debt. I put together a coaching package. It was 12 calls over 12 weeks that went for 2 hours each. And I charged $300 for the entirety of the 12 weeks.
Wow.
Guess what? Someone paid the $300. It's the best $300 I ever made in my entire life.
If I'm 20 years old listening to this show, how do I start to tune into that frequency?
Totally. So
JKP soldiers, a super warm welcome back to the show. Here we are, the grand finale of season 9. It's been an incredible journey, diving deep into the world of wellness with so many guests discussing their journeys from mental health to psychology or to just being able to open up, making that pressure cooker of hospitality just that little bit easier. Now, this conversation is extremely different to others that we've had previously on the show. Now, for me, it's important to share not just food professionals, but to also share stories of individuals who have helped to shape the lives of others, especially in the world of wellness. What a better way to close it than to have one true leader in this particular space. On the podcast this week, I'm honored to welcome Regan Hillyer, a global speaker, serial entrepreneur, philanthropist, energy coach, and #1 best-selling author. Regan has built an international 8-figure empire around helping people unlock their true potential, rewrite their mindsets, and consciously create the lives they dream of. All by tapping into the quantum field through her groundbreaking energetic architecture method. Whether it's wealth, vitality, leadership, relationships, or spiritual growth, Regan is a powerhouse who walks the talk across every area of life. In this conversation, we explore not just wellness, but deep transformation of how to manifest abundance, embrace optimal health, build high impact businesses, and step into the life with true purpose. And for those of you who are asking, yes, Regan does have an amazing food background too. She gives an incredible insights to chefs, foodies, and she also goes into the detail about her amazing business, The Nest. Now get ready for a conversation that will not only inspire you, but could genuinely change your life. For the final time this season, time to rock and roll.
Hi, my name is Regan Hillyer, speaker, coach, entrepreneur. And if you like the podcast, make sure that you follow, share, and subscribe.
Welcome back to the Chef JKP Podcast. And on the show today, we have the absolute honor of having one of the most incredible people and inspirational people, I will say, on the planet, the one and only Regan Hillyer. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, James. It's so good to be here.
So, before we get into everything else that you're about, can you please tell me your first or favorite childhood food memory?
Wow. Well, I don't know how long you've got because I come from a family of foodies and everyone is very much obsessed with food. I mean, my grandparents owned a bakery and my dad was pulled out of school when he was 12, 13 to work in that bakery. And so I was constantly surrounded by cooking and food, and we're a family of chefs, not me personally, but everyone else basically. So I have so many amazing memories of, barbecues at Christmas in the sun with fresh seafood that my family would go and get scallops and wrap them in bacon and cook them in white wine. And I have amazing food memories. I don't think I can pick one.
Really?
Yes.
So who did the cooking? Was your mum, dad, or the whole family?
Everyone, basically, my whole family. A lot of the food is from my dad's side though. So my dad even now will cook almost every meal and every little detail, like even on a Monday night, the plates come out heated. Like,
oh wow!
No, I'm serious.
Okay, that's a detail.
Yeah.
So he's proper chef.
Proper chef. He would say no way, don't be silly. But
wow.
Yeah.
So you grew up around food essentially.
A lot of food.
So then what were the sort of foods that you were leaning towards to when you were sort of younger, towards a teenage age?
I was basically raised on meat, being from New Zealand. So we were constantly eating wild venison that my dad would go and hunt and bring back. Amazing lamb, a lot of seafood and fresh fish. So those are really the core elements.
And did you touch any food at all? Were you curious about sort of cooking, or did you just let the family do it?
I'm definitely not a chef, but I love cooking. And, even as a child, I would bake a lot. And often Dad would always say, come and be my sous chef. That was my role. And so I'd be a little girl cutting vegetables for him and helping him in the kitchen. It was a big part of my growing up, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then when you sort of get into sort of educational path, whether it was high school or college, did you know what you wanted to do at that time?
No, I didn't. When I was 17, 18 years old, my parents said to me, you have to go to university and you have to figure out what you're going to do. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. And my dad always said to me, he said, Regan, if I had your opportunities, I would have been an architect, because he loved, thinking about designing spaces, and he was always sketching ideas for homes and things like that. And I really had no idea what I wanted to do. So I was like, I think I'll study architecture.
Okay.
Right? Very unconsciously, to really please my parents and stay in connection with my dad. And it seemed like a good option because, I was creative and I liked art, and I started that path and I went to university and started studying architecture, and I enjoyed it and I was good at it. But I always knew deep down that it wasn't for me. I knew that there was something else. I had no idea what that looked like. But I remember early on, I walked into a lecture theatre in university as an architecture student, and we had a new lecturer come in, and he got us to go through this process. He got us to close our eyes and visualize the life that we were born to be and born to live into 20 years out from now as an architect, right? And everyone got obviously very excited. You could feel the anticipation in the room. And I started seeing this vision, and I was like, I don't think I want this life. I saw the worst case scenario for me personally. And I realized that I was on a path that it wasn't my passion and it wasn't for my soul. And I wasn't really doing what I was put here to do. And so I ran out of that room and I made a decision, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to find out, why am I here and how do I create a life that I love?
And Regan, how old were you when
I was 18.
So you were 18 when you had that epiphany?
Yeah, I was 18.
Wow.
I went to Dr. Google. I was like, how do I quit my 9-to-5 job? I was like, I need to get out of here. What am I doing? This is wrong. I just knew it was wrong. I had no idea what I wanted my life to look like, but I was so clear at that point as an 18-year-old that I just didn't want to be an architect. I was good at it even. I was on a scholarship at university, but it wasn't my passion.
So you made that decision. You obviously told your parents.
I had to call my dad.
How was that?
I was so scared to call him. It was my biggest fear, really, letting him down. And I remember calling him. I was shaking, and I said to him, like, Dad, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I want to be an architect. I don't think it's for me. And to my surprise, on the other end of the phone, he turned around and he's like, okay.
Oh.
He's like, I want you to be happy. And I said, okay. And he said, so what are you going to do? And I was like, well, just give me a minute on that one. Like, I honestly have no idea. So that's when I started Googling and I started looking at, like, how do you make money? How do you live a life that you love? And I started coming across all these different options in the personal development industry, right? So I started reading books. I started going to personal development seminars. I was the youngest person in the room. So many people on stages surrounded by 40, 50-year-olds there learning property strategies and how to trade a .com business and sales and marketing and Forex trading and all these strategies, right?
Was it overwhelming for you?
It was totally overwhelming. And I was really grasping outside of myself. I was a broke university student. So I was taking out personal loans and credit cards to pay for coaching and courses and education. And I got to a point where I was over 6 figures in personal debt, just paying for all these courses, trying to figure out my life, and nothing was really working, to be honest. I was starting companies, they were failing, and people were watching and they were like, okay, what is she doing? And I had a mentor, his name is Simon, and he was probably at least 40 years older than me. And he said to me, he said, Regan, you know, you're trying to do all these things. And he said, you're missing the point. He's like, whatever you want to create in your life, it's 80% an internal game. It's 80% your mindset, your psychology, your energy, and then 20% all these strategies and what you then actually do. And he said, what are you doing about the 80%? And I realized I was doing absolutely nothing about it. I didn't understand it.
Right.
I didn't even know what it was. So that sent me off on another whole pathway of who am I from the inside out, and how do I program myself from the inside out, and how do I condition Regan to succeed in anything that she wanted to do. So I started studying NLP and hypnosis and then energy work, and that opened a whole can of worms, because when I combined all of that work with the action that I was then taking on the outside, things started changing like really fast.
But I'm just wondering, Regan, from the time, obviously, you must have had sort of intrepidation, having a bit of fear, even. Number one, telling your father.
Yeah.
Number one, because it sort of builds up, doesn't it? You think worst case scenario.
Yeah.
But then also having the foresight for you to go into that sort of space of development. Because a lot of people would have said, okay, well, you're very artistic. You went into architecture, graphic design, and that kind of stuff. But I wanted to sort of dig into what really made you push to go into things like NLP and personal development and things like this. And also, how did you find, or how did you contact Simon at that time?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this push honestly just came from just starting to search. Like, I was just searching on Google, I was like, how do you change your mindset? I just started asking Google all these questions, right? I was like, I don't know. Like, I had no one else to ask or turn to. So I was just searching on the internet, like, okay, he said I need to think more positive. How do I think positive? And naturally I started finding books and courses and things like that. So this man, Simon, I met him at a wealth creation event that I went to. And this was one of the events where they were teaching all these different financial strategies, and the main guy that was creating the event, he was his mentor. Yeah. And so I ended up chatting to him. He came up to me actually at the back of the room, and he was like, hey, I'm Simon. It's nice to meet you. And I think I stood out because I was, 18, 19 years old. And he was kind of like, what's this child doing here? Right? Like, where are your parents? And, he just poured into me. He was really one of the first people in my life that really saw something in me that I couldn't see at the time. He took me under his wing, and he had this like very fatherly, beautiful, loving energy to him where I could just feel him that he really wanted to help me. It was amazing.
So when you went into the 80-20.
Yeah.
So just for me to get it right, also for the audience. So 80% is about the psychology and the work that you have to do within yourself. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And the 20% is the physical.
Yeah, the action that you then take. Call the person, do the thing, go to the new job interview, like whatever that is. Yeah. So
with you at the time, what did you start to do specifically for the 80% part?
Yeah. So when I started going into NLP and hypnosis and energy work and all these pieces, I really started looking at, okay, what is it in me that's blocking this, right? Because one of my earliest mentors said to me, Regan, if there's anything that you want to create and it's not here right now, it's because there's things in you that are stopping it showing up. Right? So I started going, well, what are those things? Okay, let me look at the fears. Let me look at the limiting beliefs. Let me look at the stories. Let me look at the part of myself that feels not enough, right? Let me look at the story in my mind that says, oh, I don't know how to do that, or that's for someone else, or that's not for people like a family that I've been born into, right? And so I got to look at all these things and bring them to the surface, and then do what I call, alchemize them, change the energy around them, change the story, recode it from the inside out to actually create it to be useful stories and useful information, right? And then simultaneously, I also got really clear on my vision, because I realized that it wasn't enough just to say, oh, I want to be happy, or I want to be abundant, or I want to be free, I want to make more money. What does that mean? If I give you $1 more, you've made more money. But is that what you want? No, you probably want a little more. So I started realizing that, okay, I need to figure out what is my vision and what do I actually want. And it was interesting because the first time I asked myself that, I sat there with a journal with a piece of paper and a pen. And And I was like, what is my vision? And I just drew a blank. It was really weird. I was like, what do I want in my life? I don't know. And then I felt really weird for not knowing. I was like, what's wrong with me? You know, everyone's creating all these vision boards and they want this big life. I'm like, I actually don't know what I want. And I realized that I had so much programming from society and from school and, you know, so much of, no, you can't have that. No, that's impossible. That's not for people like you. And I had so many layers to go through, and I just kept sitting with it, and I kept asking myself, and I kept giving myself permission to dream into, like, what would my dream life actually look like? And I started just writing things out to try them on. So I would be like, yeah, I want a huge boat. And then I'd be like, not really. I don't actually care that much. Right? Like, that'd be cool. But like, I think what's important is this and this and that, you know? And so I just started trying things on and being like, actually, yeah, I just got goosebumps. Like, I want that. That's amazing. Yes, that feels really good. Oh my God, if I could travel in this way, that would be amazing, you know? And I started trying things on like that and really pushing myself to start unlocking the vision that I couldn't even see in the beginning.
So how long in total did you go through that journey from start to finish? You went to all of these seminars.
Yeah.
When did you and then, you know, you did the 80-20 work.
Yeah.
When did you start seeing those results?
Well, firstly, I haven't finished the journey, so I still do this. I still am in it every day. I'm still like, what is the next layer of my vision? Wow, look at this story. Look at this fear. You know, I don't think we ever complete that process. But when I started doing that, combined with the action that I was taking, things started changing really quickly, actually, really fast. And people started noticing, you know, the same people that were watching me fail and watching me crash and burn with all of this for a couple of years started coming to me, and they started saying, like, Regan, this is amazing. Like, you look happier, you look healthier, you're making money. What are you doing? Right? And so it's interesting because I started sharing with them. I was like, well, you know, in the morning, do this. And when you're not clear on your vision, do this. And when you feel fear, like, here's what I do. And here are my tools. And I started sharing the things that were working for me. And the craziest thing happened, James. People started coming back to me and they started thanking me. Some of them were crying. Some of them were saying, you don't understand. You've completely changed my life. And now this is different. And I got this weird feeling in my stomach. And I'm like, what is this feeling? And then I realized, I'm like, I think this is what purpose feels like. And I had this moment where I was like, oh, what if this whole journey that I'm on isn't about how does Regan create her best life? But what if the question was more like, how do I help other people create an amazing life? And then just know that, of course, I'll be taken care of in that process too. Something changed for me.
What I want to also ask you is, during our human programming of connection, being friends, family, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
How did you feel at that time when, you know, you were pushing towards this goal of wellness, getting, you know, all of these sort of things that you're doing, but at the same time, perhaps you might have had friends or family who didn't quite understand what you were doing, were saying, stop doing this, what are you doing, so on and so forth. Was it extremely challenging for you to sort of deal with that? Or were you like, you know what, I have a much bigger path and I know where I'm going?
It was extremely challenging. Yeah, it was extremely challenging. And I hit a point where I didn't have one person in my life at one point that actually supported me or got me or understood what was going on or was happy about any of it. One of the first wealth creation events I went to, these seminars, I had my mum calling me on repeat saying, get out of the room, get out of the room. It's a scam. It's a scam. They're going to take your money. Like, this is like, you're unsafe. And I was like, Mom, I think these people are actually nice, good people. No, get out of the room. Like, right. So I had that energy going on. I had my dad very concerned about me just because he wants me to be safe and, you know, just have security. And he's like, oh God, what are you doing? What are you doing? Right. And then absolutely none of my friends from school and no one in my social circle, I mean, they were laughing at me. They were ridiculing me. And everything got so intense that one by one, piece by piece, layer by layer, I just started removing myself from all these people. You know, and obviously family, you can't remove yourself maybe entirely, but I stopped telling them things. I stopped sharing where I was going or what I was doing. I stopped engaging in conversations. And I had this very interesting moment where I sat there one day and I was like, it's just me now. I literally had not one friend, I didn't have one person in my social circle. I had no one I could talk to. There wasn't one person where I could go, yeah, like they're with me. Like they're celebrating me. They're excited for me. Not one. I had removed everyone from my life. And I sat there and I felt myself wanting to go into a story almost a little bit like a victim saying, oh, you know, I knew this would happen. It's lonely at the top and I'm not even anywhere near the top, right? I'm still at the bottom somewhere, but this is bad, you know? And then I realized like, okay, what if this emptiness that I'm feeling with my friends, with my family, with my environment, what if this is good? Because what if I've now just created space for new people to come into my life? And I chose to have that perspective around that, even though it was really uncomfortable and it was very lonely and it was hard, you know? And it took a lot of courage to keep going, even though there wasn't one person next to me going, yeah, you're doing great. Keep going. It's going to work, right? I had to be my own cheerleader in my own head in that way. And so as I removed all these people from my environment, I created this space. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to intentionally now fill these spaces in my environment with amazing people. And I don't know where they're going to come from, but I'm going to find them. So when I started going to events, intentionally, I would go and connect with people. Right. Intentionally. I would be the one that would walk up to the speaker that had just been on stage and be like, hi, you're amazing. Can I take you for a coffee? Do you have 10 minutes? I would go and like, again, I was like 20 at the time, right? And I would engage with these people. And it worked. You know, I started making friends in that way.
But it takes a lot of courage, Regan.
For sure.
You know, a lot of courage to number one, you know, have that space where the family, the friends are saying, no, what are you doing? Yeah. At the same time, to say, okay, I'm going to create this space and then directly go to different mentors or people who have inspired you to say, would you like to have a coffee?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, and many people said no. They're like, no, sorry, I'm busy. I can't have a coffee. I'm like, okay. And I went and asked someone else. I would just keep going.
But it's important, I think, to have that connection because also a lot of people, I think specifically in this day and age, they don't have that connection, human connection in that respect to go and have a chat face to face rather than on a screen. Right. That's why I'm saying it's just like you must have had a lot of inner strength at that time in order to say, well, I'm going to go towards my goal. Despite the naysayers, they'll come back later in another way.
Totally.
To then, you know, push forward. So then when you started having these sort of wins and people started coming to you, what started happening at that time?
Yeah, so that was interesting. When I started tapping into this feeling that I then realized was called purpose, I was like, this feels good. I want to feel more of this in my life. I'd been helping these people for free, right? Just telling them like, yeah, do this and stop doing that. And this worked for me and try that. And I was like, okay, maybe there's something to this. And so I thought to myself, you know, maybe I could do calls with them and I could help them. Now, I never set out to become a coach or anything like that. You know, I wasn't studying how to become a life coach, like nothing. I just thought, you know, instead of all these little social conversations, maybe I could get on the phone with them for an hour or two and I could share and I could help them. And there's things that I now know about practical psychology that I could get in there and also help them with their psychology, right? So I started piecing this together and I put together a coaching package, which I didn't even call a coaching package at the time. It was just like, yeah, here's how I can help you. It didn't even have a name. But it was 12 calls over 12 weeks that went for 2 hours each. And I charged $300 for the entirety of the 12 weeks.
That's a lot of, wow.
It's like slave labor.
I was going to say, same as working in a kitchen.
It's like, it's not. It's like so below minimum wage. It's not even funny. Like, it's crazy.
Wow.
But I was so happy about it.
But you loved it, right?
I loved it. And guess what? Someone paid the $300. It was the best $300 I ever made in my entire life. I just remember someone said, yeah, okay, I'll do the 12 weeks and paid me the $300 on PayPal. And I just remember staring at the PayPal being like, someone paid me. Someone paid me to help them. Oh my goodness. This is a big responsibility. Like, it was huge for me. It was huge for me. So then I did it again. And then I did it again, and then at some point I thought, okay, I think I should charge maybe $500 because this is like,
well, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of work and a lot of time.
But that's
and
where
then
I
that
started
snowballed.
with that. It snowballed. It snowballed. I slowly started obviously increasing the rates to be somewhat normal. And I was booked out. I was back to back to back. I was 12 hours or more on the phone every single day.
Whoa.
I was changing people's lives on these phone calls and going through these deep processes with them. And it was amazing. And I think I could do it because I was, 20, 21 or so at this time. But at the same time, I thought, okay, there's got to be a longer term, more sustainable way to do this. Because I would maybe even just a Friday night to myself where I could rest. I was jammed. And so I thought to myself, okay, instead of speaking to 50 people for 1 hour each over 50 hours, what if I could put 50 people in one room and talk to them all for 1 hour, right? And so I thought, I'm going to start doing that. So there's a website called meetup.com. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a website where basically you can organize meetup groups and they can be for free. And as a host, you can pay like $20 or so a month. It was $20 at the time. And you can be a host and organize your own meetups. So I started doing that. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to start creating these groups where people can just come and they can turn up, and at some point I'll talk to them a little bit. And I started running these events, these speaking events, and that I had general, mindset and psychology groups. And then I also started helping women with dating education, and but from very much like their inner world, right? Their self-belief and their psychology and all of this. And when I first started, I ran the first event and I had 20 people in one room. I was an absolutely terrible speaker. Like, it was so bad. You should have seen their faces. They were all like, really? But I did it again, and then I did it again, and I learned from it, and I did it again. And if we fast forward, 6 or 7 months later, I was running events in the park in Australia and in New Zealand with 2,000 people showing up at one time. So this started snowballing really, really, really fast. And that company, I just turned 23 years old. That company was doing just over $1 million a year at that time.
No way.
Yeah.
So you went from a student who didn't sort of really know where to go, 5 years later, fast forward, and, it's serious revenue, basically.
Yeah.
So then, Regan, as you know, you're on a chef food podcast.
Yes.
Now, for some of our audience who may have not or have come across you for the first time ever, my question to you now is, who is Regan Hillyer? If it's the first time they've come across you, what is your purpose? What do you do, and how do you change people's lives?
That's a great question. Well, Regan is just Regan at the end of the day. And the goal is actually to just be more Regan every single day, really, to be the most authentic version of myself, and to always be in my own inner work and inquiry around how do I even get more authentic and more me. And then the reason that I'm really here on this planet, I believe, is to help people. It's to help leave this planet better than I found it. And it's to help people really elevate their frequency and their vibration so that they can become a match for whatever it is that they're looking to call in. If that's a new opportunity, if that's a certain amount of money, if that's unlocking the next level of their purpose, I know that I have the tools to help them elevate and become that version so that then they can naturally create that in their life practically. Yeah.
Because the other thing is that I don't think we do enough of, and you can 100% talk about this far more than I can, is manifestation. Mm-hmm. A lot of us, especially within the industry, and I'm going to say that, is that when we're growing up, whatever it may be that we want to open a business, maybe that we want to become the next Gordon Ramsay, goals, dreams, and they're great.
Yeah.
Right? But what would be your best way to describe, as in how do you actually do the work and manifest that from within to then externalize that?
Yeah, totally. So the process of manifestation is really taking something that's very etheric, if you like. It's a vision, a prayer, a dream, and then being the vessel that then anchors it into the reality, in the sense where it's now here. It's no longer a dream, it's in your life, it's shown up, right? So how I like to break this down is that, firstly, as I touched on earlier, you've got to get really clear on your vision. Firstly, like, what is it that you actually want? Not what have you been programmed to want or told that you should do or have, right? But if you were to be really unapologetic, like, what is the vision of your soul? What do you actually desire, right? And then after you're clear on that, and by the way, anyone listening can just write down these questions and then answer them, right? Spend some time. Maybe you spend a whole Saturday afternoon just being like, what is it that I want, right? If I could just exit out of my life and really get real with myself, what is that?
But
right?
also, you're not weird if you don't know the answer.
Exactly. I didn't know. If you don't know the answer, it's just programming and conditioning that you need to kind of break through and sit with. And the only way to fail on this is to stop asking yourself the question. I promise you, if people just stay with it, dream with it, even if it takes a week, like it will hit you and you will start seeing, oh, okay, you know? So that's the first step. The second step is then you've got to expand your capacity to receive. So it's not just about, okay, here's a vision and a dream and a goal, because if everyone just had a vision, then they'd just receive it, right? But we've got to actually expand and hold this. So what happens is that in our unconscious system, we hit what is called upper limits, right? So for example, if someone's looking to, say, manifest, say, $100,000 a year, right? And they're looking to manifest 6 figures, and they get like very, very, very close to that all the time, but they never cross that threshold. And they're trying different things. They might even go and get different jobs, but they're not crossing that mark, often because unconsciously they're hitting a cap, right? Now, we have these caps because we're wired for safety. So if we get to an edge of a cliff, we have a cap saying, no, stop. Don't go any further. You're going to die if you fall off the edge of the cliff. That's a big black hole down the end there, right? So the same thing's happening with our manifestations. We hit these caps and our system goes, no, don't manifest that thing because you might die on the other side of it. So if your unconscious system can't see what is next, then it marks it as the unknown, and it marks it as, I need to keep you safe from it. So we're trying to keep ourselves safe from actually manifesting what we want. It's crazy.
So how do you go beyond that?
Here's how you go beyond it. So in this money example, right, $100,000 a year, people are going, that's the goal, that's the big dream, that's the vision. Great. Okay. I would ask you, if you woke up tomorrow and you'd already done that, you were living into a life where you're getting paid 6 figures, it's already happened, what's your next goal? What's the vision beyond the vision? Because you're not now saying, I want 100 grand. No, you've already got it. So you probably want 120 or 150 or whatever it is, right? So you always need to be working one level out, right? The minute you start saying, okay, cool, well, I've already done the 100K. Let me now choose the big vision is 150K. All of a sudden, something interesting happens because the 100K becomes a stepping stone. You've got to do it in order to get to the 150. Your whole system adjusts itself. And when you're going for the 100, now your system doesn't go, oh God, it's the unknown there. It goes, no, I know what's coming. It's 150 next. That's safe. In fact, that's good. That's amazing. In fact, I want that. So you elevate even faster through manifesting the 100, right? So you've always got to be working a level out, at least from what you want. Does it make sense?
Absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
Because the other thing I wanted to sort of go into next to that is also, I want to talk about things that, again, us people in hospitality do not tap into at all, which is the frequency within the soul's desire.
Yeah.
So you've manifested what you want, but also it's not about that. It's also just about that energetic, the abundance that you want in your life. Mm-hmm. How can people begin to attract all of these things? Because I think people, as you said, one thing that is very, very clear within the work that you do and what I see a lot of is that people are just programmed.
Totally.
From whether it's from family, whether it's from work, whether it's from their limiting beliefs. For me, it's about how do we get past those? Because I think it's very tricky if you've never done the work before. So if I was to do a day one, what would be, let's say your top 3 tips on that? Yeah,
totally. And you're right. Like, we can't manifest anything we want if we have these things inside us that's blocking us. And we all have it. Like, by the way, find me a human that doesn't have some fears or some stories that don't serve them. And, as you elevate through different levels in your life, new stuff comes up in you. Like, I see things all the time where I'm like, oh, wow, I just told myself a story about that. And, oh, there's a little fear on that, right? So you're constantly doing the work on this. So the first thing is to take it from your unconscious system and bring it to your conscious mind. So if we're unaware of these blocks, it can be quite challenging to change them. But if you ask yourself, sit down and write out, what is currently blocking me, stopping me, slowing me down, or holding me back in me, right? And so that's when you can get really raw and real and be like, okay, well, I'm a little scared of what people might think if I manifest that. Or I'm telling myself a story that's really big and hard and it's going to take a lot of time. Or I don't know how to do that. Or I can't do that in this industry, or whatever it is, right? You get the stories out, you get the fears out. And then from there, that's honestly 95% of the game, because now you're aware of it. From there, sometimes, honestly, you can write that out and look at it and be like, okay, I'm done with that. I no longer tolerate those stories. I'm not going to live from that place anymore. Actually, that story, that's not even true, right? And just seeing it can shift it. Then obviously, if you still feel it's true and it's real, you stick with it. Now, there's many different tools. Like maybe you want to move your body to clear it out of your system. Maybe you want to talk it out with a friend. Like there's so many different ways that you can then reprogram yourself to clear this out. But what you want to do is then create a new program to run in its place. So for example, if you've been telling yourself that, okay, I would love to create this in my life, but I feel that's going to take a really long time. Okay, I'm done with that story. You'd write out, I now choose to believe that what I want happens really fast. I now choose to believe that what I want has turned up even quicker than I expect. I choose to believe that people come to me and say, wow, how'd you do that so quickly? Right? So now we're writing the new program to run over top of what used to run in the system.
So then we say in the industry that time is your biggest enemy. However, when it is about that, and you want to fast forward yourself into that vision, that greater vision of yourself. A lot of people will argue and they'll say, well, it's going to take me 20 years because I need to get up the ladder and, this and this and this. And it's just excuse after excuse. Because I know that the work that you do with time is really key.
Yeah.
So I want to, again, break it down. How do we not only to manifest, we understand how to get into that mindset and frequency.
Yeah.
The next is how do we almost fast forward into that bigger, better version of ourselves?
Yeah, this time piece is critical. Like if anyone is out there saying time is my biggest enemy, then it will be. It's that simple. Time is an illusion and it's a construct and it's something that we can play with. It's malleable and it's determined by our relationship with time. And the only person defining our relationship with time is ourselves. And if we don't get in there and define it, it defaults to our unconscious programming with time. Now, most of us grew up saying, quick, like we don't have enough time.
Right.
Like you're running out of time. Like we hear the bells ringing at school, like on to the next thing. Like it's time. It's not a great relationship with time. So we've got to get in there and actually reprogram this and look at this. Now, I think everyone listening would have had an experience where they've actually had the time bend and they're probably thinking, no, I've never had that. But how many times have you been doing something that you love and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, it's been an hour. It feels like 10 minutes and you're like in a zone, right? Yeah, you tapped into an altered state of time. You actually allowed the time to bend. And then how many times have you been sitting somewhere and you're waiting for something and it feels like it's an hour, but it's been like 7 minutes. And you're like, come on, why is the time going so slow, right? Again, because your perception of time is altering and bending because of your emotional state and your connection to it in this moment. So this happens unconsciously. And we have these experiences where we're like, oh, how did that happen? But we can actually create these experiences. Now, again, it comes down to our relationship with time. So if we're, for example, telling ourselves, oh, time's my greatest enemy. I never have enough time. I'm constantly running out of time. I wish there was more time, right? Again, that's going to create that reality. You will have that direct experience, I promise. Now, someone else could be in the exact same scenario as you, yet they chose to believe that time is their greatest asset. That time is on their side, that time is the secret tool in their toolkit. They believe that they can bend time. They believe that they can speed up or slow down time. They believe that there's more than enough time to always get everything done. They believe that everything is always delivered earlier than people expect, right? And all of a sudden, they're having this experience where it's that, right? People ask me all the time, how do you manage to do everything, run multiple different companies and actually still be relaxed and have a nice life? And I'm like, because I choose that I have this relationship with time. And if I chose that I was always running against the clock, then I would be always running against the clock.
You know what's really interesting, Regan, is that one of the things we say very much like what you've just mentioned to all of our teams and our commies, especially when it comes to the mental sort of headspace. We say, look, You can either live in negative land or positive land.
Yeah.
You know, and which one is better?
Choose.
And they're like, oh yeah, it's positive. So you're absolutely right. Because when you say, a lot of people will say, I don't have time.
Yeah.
But then, okay, well, time is my friend. I have time on my side. It's a very different energy and a different thing to say.
Yeah.
You know, so how do you tune in? So once you've done that, how do you then see a bigger, better version of yourself?
Yeah. So seeing a bigger, better version of yourself is actually very easy. So, and it's good we talked about the time piece before, because in order to do this, you get to play with time a little bit. So we have total access already to a version of ourselves out there in the future that's already created everything that we want. Now, we know this to be true. Why? Because if there's something that you want, you have a desire for it, right? And the soul speaks to us through desire. And if you didn't desire something, then it means that it just wasn't out there in your future. Like someone could come right now and be like, Regan, I just got a brand new red Ferrari. Now I can be really happy for them, but there's not really a part of me, at least right now, that's like, oh, I really want a red Ferrari. Like I just don't. I live in the jungle in Costa Rica. It wouldn't make any sense, right? It's like, okay, I can be happy for them, but it's like, I'm not like, oh my God, I want that thing.
Right.
So when you have that feeling of, oh my God, I want that thing, it means that you've already done it somewhere out there in your future. And it's your soul whispering to you saying like, hey, yeah, you want this because you actually already have it. Because time is an illusion. And we know through the quantum field that we have all access to all information simultaneously, relative to time or distance, right? And so we have this desire. Our soul is whispering to us. We want this thing, which is why we have the vision or the prayer or the dream. We want to manifest it. So now our job is to actually become the version of ourselves that can easily manifest that. Because we don't get in life what we do, but we do get exactly who we choose to be. Now, here's what most people do, right? Most people just wait out all the years to eventually gradually evolve into being the version of themselves that gets it and can manifest what they want. And then there's other people who say, okay, what if I could bend the time and connect with a version of me that had already created the life that I want? And what if I could bring that version into the now, be that version, and speed up this process? So if we're here at now and we go back 5 years ago you were still you, and then you gradually evolved into this version of you. And this brings us to now. Now, if we go out into the future 5 years, you're still going to be you. You're just going to be a more evolved, more conscious, more successful, younger, better looking, more awesome version of yourself, right? That's how it works. So again, most people just let the time pass and go, oh, okay, and then become that version. But you can connect with that version right now, today.
How?
Through your intention. You do not need to go and become a monk and sit in a cave and meditate for 20 years to have access. You can literally close your eyes now and say, I choose to connect with the version of me that's already created everything that I want. Now, you don't need to see it. You don't need to feel it. Like, as long as you choose with your intention, I connect with that version right now, you can start almost like a podcast. You start interviewing that version of you. Okay, how does that version of me walk? How does that version of me talk? How does that version of me walk into the kitchen? How does that version of me communicate with the food? How does that version of me allow my culinary skills to come in as art, right? How does this version of me have a certain level of awareness? What do they do in the morning? How are they with their family? What do they do at night, right? Notice. This is not, oh, how did they make this happen? No, how are they being, right? What is their connection to God or spirit or something greater than themselves or not, right? And you connect with all of these little details and you start downloading and accessing this beingness, and you can write it down and you'll notice like, oh, the version of me actually, like, they feel different. Their shoulders are different. Their head is here. Like, you'll notice, you'll start receiving these pieces. You know what? They don't tolerate that anymore. They're more like this. They say yes to this, whereas I would have said no right now. Actually, they say no to things like that, which I've been letting kind of happen in my life, right? And you start seeing the difference between what's different of this version of me now versus the version of me that's created everything that I want. And then once you have this information, you start being it. You start walking and talking and thinking and acting and being from this state of being, from this energy. Now, this is not about fake it till you make it, because that doesn't work. But this is about getting into radical authenticity with the truth of who you actually are.
Okay.
Right?
I love that. Radical authenticity.
Yeah.
And for people who have never perhaps heard of this, how could we define it if it's the very first time you sort of heard about this, but you're already like, wow, I would love to be my radical, authentic self?
Yeah, you can call it your highest self if you want, right? The highest iteration of you that's already created everything that you desire, because that's you. It's not becoming someone else. It's not a fake it till you make it, pretend you're something. No, it's about how do I be more me? You asked me before, who's Regan? I'm like, and what's the goal? I'm like, my goal is to be more me. That's why. Because if I can be a higher version of myself, I'm going to change my life faster. I'm going to change other people's lives faster. I'm going to be more useful. I'm going to be more in my purpose. I'm going to be more abundant, right? All of that, right? So it's choosing to connect with that, knowing that I wouldn't even put a 5-year thing on it, just the highest version of yourself that's created the most stunning, beautiful, incredible life that couldn't be more in alignment with what you want. You have total access to that vision now.
Because what I think you're saying also, and I think it's very interesting, is that when you're a child, and let's say Christmas or your birthdays come around, your desire could be for a bike, I don't know, Sega Mega, or whatever it is, right? And all of a sudden, and you're thinking, oh, how am I going to ride this bike? And, you know, am I going to crash? Am I not going to crash? But you're already visualizing. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, you have that incredible bike. Now, when it comes to things like, you know, desire and wanting things, some people may argue, well, I think it's very selfish for you to want this. But on the opposite spectrum of that, desire is normal. It's a good thing to have. But in your field of work, talk to me about, you know, if it's something that your soul desires, should you lean in? Should you not? How does that work?
If it's from the soul, always lean in. You know, because the soul is pure light. The soul is your purest essence. It's a good question, though, to ask, you know, who's manifesting, though? Is it your soul's desire, or is it a desire from the limiting constructs of your ego? And only you can know that, you know? And I think we all do this. Like, I've definitely created things in my life where then they turn up and then I'm like, didn't even really want that, right? Okay, right? And then I realized, like, okay, well, why did I want that? Why did I desire that? Oh, okay, yeah, I had programming around that. Yeah, I grew up in a way where people told me that was the thing that I really wanted and should be good at, or anything like that, right? So it's going to the soul gym, you know? It's practicing, and it's creating things in your life, and it's learning when maybe you manifest something and it's not from the highest place, right? And you know, hindsight's amazing, but you know, you can only learn by getting out and being in the field and doing this work, and then going like, yeah, okay, yeah, I created that, and oh, that feels so good. I want more of that. Yeah, this is definitely from my soul. Versus like, okay, that happened, but it's a little off path. Like, let me refine and bring it back over here, you know.
But do you think I think also there would be people who, again, perhaps stumble across this show, or they're expecting foodie chat.
Yeah.
And
we can talk more about food too.
No, because that's not what I want to talk about.
Okay.
When it comes to things which are possible in life, creating wealth, and I'm not just talking about money, I'm talking about abundance mentally. Some people would say, well, actually, it's not possible because, you know, you can't have everything in the world, right? But there are infinite possibilities in life, right? How can we chip away at these beliefs and sort of push people out the way to say, no, I can achieve and I can have possibilities?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to remember that we are playing an infinite game, and really we're infinite beings, and we have access to infinite information. And it's very easy to either not know that or just lose sight of that, right? Because of the boxes that we live in. Oh, this is me, and this is where I am. This is my family, and this is my job, and this is my life, and this is my money. So it is what it is, you know? People can get stuck in that construct. But if we, again, look at this more from a quantum physics perspective, you know, and we zoom in to structure, and we're made up of atoms, right? And then if we zoom in, we have these electrons kind of floating around. And if we zoom in even more, then we have everything connected through energy fields. And if we zoom in even more to that, we have quantum foam, or or effectively what is fluctuations in the time-space construct that science starts being like, well, I can't even explain why those fluctuations are going on. And then if we zoom in even more, we have basically empty space. We have 99.9999% of nothing. And if we zoom in even more, the information's all connected and interacting through frequency. So we're effectively 99.99999% nothing made up of frequency. And if we start going, okay, and then if that's the case and we're made up of this frequency and is this nothingness separate to anything else? No, it's all interconnected. It's all part of the quantum field. We are the quantum field. We're not separate looking at it. Like, we are a part of it, which means we have access to infinite potentiality through this 99.99999% nothingness. We have access to everything. We have access to all the information. So we're effectively just information. Our manifestations are just information. It's all interconnected through the quantum field. And so the minute we start seeing this, I mean, I just take a step back and I'm like, okay, who am I to think that like something that I want isn't possible when it's infinite and I have access to all of it, right? So it's nice to kind of zoom out and just have this perspective and remember this. And then, that's when you go in and you start, looking at the blocks and the fears and the pieces, and you start defining the vision, you start expanding your capacity to receive, but you're doing this from a very different place. You're doing this from an energy and a frequency of knowing the infinite potentiality. So we're playing a frequency game at the end of the day, right? Our frequency is our currency, and we're in constant frequency exchange with all of the information around us. Like, everything that appears very solid and still isn't. It's oscillating, it's vibrating, it's moving, just as we are also. And so, practically, we need to effectively condition all of our information, all of our frequency bands within ourselves to actually match up to what we're looking to manifest. So whatever we're experiencing in our life, good, bad, ugly, it's happening because at some level we matched with it on a frequency level. Well, I don't like how that person spoke to me like that. Okay, where are you vibrating in that same energy? Because you created a reflection of it. Oh, I have the most beautiful, loving, intimate relationship with my partner right now. Well, awesome. That's great. And you created that experience of that because you matched with that. You have beautiful, loving vibration running in your system right now, right? So if we want to manifest something on the outside and it's not here right now, well, then we've got to update our frequency to have received it so we can feel the frequency of it so it then shows up.
So Regan, if I'm, let's say, 20 years old, listening to this show, I've never done that before.
Yeah.
The manifesting piece, I've got it.
Yeah.
How do I start to tune into that frequency?
Totally. So it's what I call energetic conditioning or frequency conditioning, right? And you can use a tool that I use that is very successful and powerful for people called manifestation alarms. Okay. So this is like going to the frequency gym, right?
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
You don't go to the gym once and do a bicep curl and then be like, where's my dream body, right? It's like, you might need to go again. Okay. So you must actually condition your frequency. Here's how you do it. You set these alarms throughout your day, ideally every hour if you can.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And you want to make this a nice alarm, something that's good for your nervous system, not like the brown
nothing
apple,
weird.
like freak out heart attack alarm, right?
Okay.
So a good alarm, right? And the alarm goes off. And if possible, when that alarm goes off, I want you just for 30 seconds to maximum 2 minutes, no longer. Just stop. If you can, close your eyes and simply feel what it feels like to have what you want now. That's it. Even if you're like, oh, but it's not here. It doesn't matter. Okay, I'm so happy and grateful that this thing is here. That amount of money, that partnership, this job opportunity, whatever it is. Feel what it feels like. Now, if you can't feel it, doesn't matter. You're going to do it again the next hour. And then you're going to do it again. You're going to do it again until eventually, I promise, at some point, you're going to be like, oh, I feel it.
Right.
Oh, and it's going to feel different for everyone. Maybe you feel really grateful. Maybe you feel excited. Maybe you feel like butterflies, anticipation. Maybe it just feels right. Like, however it feels, you feel something. The minute you start feeling that, okay, good, I feel that feeling, you're going to tell your system, turn this feeling up, make it stronger. You're going to tell your system, double this feeling, triple this feeling, right? Until I promise you, that alarm will go off and you'll be like, boom, in the feeling. Okay, good. We're conditioning our frequency. Then, over time, the alarms keep going off. I promise you, that alarm will go off and you'll be like, oh, I'm in the feeling. I don't need to close my eyes. I don't need to get in the feeling. I feel it. Oh, that's cool. Alarms keep going off until I promise you that alarm will go off and you'll be like, oh, it's here. I manifested it. in which case you don't stop. You set different alarms. You go to the
Right.
next level, you go to the vision, beyond the vision, you keep going, right? But that's the practice. And it's very simple and very easy. And anyone that's worked with me annoys everyone in their workplace and their family and their home with alarms going off all the time. Like, why is your alarm going off on the hour every hour?
But I think that's amazing, because also, as simple as that sounds,
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah, you have to do the work.
You know, and
Yeah.
as you said, it's like when going to the gym, you have to be dedicated, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. It's that level of dedication that is going to eventually manifest whatever you desire.
Yeah.
Right? But then if we get on to another business, Regan, you are now, I mean, not just doing lots of different things with your businesses, but you are a hospitality owner. You have this incredible place in Costa Rica, the Nest.
Yeah.
You have different packages. Now, number one, some people may argue that Costa Rica isn't the easiest place to get to. And on top of that, it's in the middle of the jungle.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to have that specific location?
Yeah, this is a great question. And there were many, many, many boxes that were ticked for Costa Rica, more than anywhere else on the planet, from the nature, from the energy of the space. Also, location-wise, yes, the space is in the middle of the jungle, but we're 15 minutes from the little local airport, which is then a 20-minute flight, and then you can be straight out on an international flight. So it's actually quite easy to access. Spring water, fruit trees everywhere. Looking out at the jungle behind, and then the sunset and the ocean in the front. You're surrounded by nature. Everything's completely off the grid. You know, there were so many boxes that were ticked really for people to come and live a very high level, holistic, conscious, luxurious also life. You know, this is not like camping in the jungle, right? It's like living a beautiful lifestyle, but in harmony and synchronicity with nature.
And when did you have this sort of vision or foresight to have this space?
Yeah, this was about 4 years ago, and honestly, it was during COVID. This is what happens when you leave me in one place for too long. Okay, I can't do anything. What should I do? But it's grown. You know, the vision started actually, you know, quite small, and it was a smaller piece of land, and then the vision grew, and everything kept getting like larger. The vision beyond the vision also kept expanding, and more pieces of land kept accumulating. So now it's over 700 acres in the jungle. Yeah. And we're creating a beautiful biohacking spa where people can come in and work with a fusion of ancient technology, you know, working with things like meditation and activation and things like that, but then combined with quantum technology, with physical pieces of tech that can measure the brainwaves and your body and what's going on. We're creating a off-grid school for the children as well, and a community where people can build their homes and live either full-time or just part-time, coming and going in this beautiful space. So yeah.
And also, so in terms of having this community, why was it important for you to sort of, number one, I understand that during COVID, you know, people came up with incredible ideas, and this is absolutely one of them. But also, because there's so many places on Earth that are really beautiful.
Yeah.
Did you immediately connect to Costa Rica, or were there other options?
There were definitely other options, yeah, and there's amazing places on the planet, and it was really Costa Rica that ticked all the boxes. You know, it was also birthed during COVID, during that time where, you know, I said it's really important that if this gets worse, like there's a space where people can also come. Right. And it was created also with that intention and kind of seeing what was and seeing what's coming, and the craziness of all of it with the control and just everything that is like, wow, like, okay, yes, this can be a space that people can come and, yes, live, but also, you know, come for retreats or come for a week or two and plug in and learn to live a different way, and then take that back to their families and their homes and their communities as well. We're creating an amazing restaurant there as well. So the food we consider super important, because the food is also frequency. Again, we're not separate to the food. It's a part of this. How are you eating? What are you eating? From what space is the food prepared and cooked from? Like all of this, the food is medicine, you know, and it's a big part. If people are coming and they're spending a week and they're working with all these technologies and they're upgrading themselves and they're in nature, well, it's really, really, really important, the frequency that they're then putting in their body. Right? And how do we make that also taste amazing and look amazing and be artwork in the same way, you know?
Wow. And so the Nest is now open?
It's open. Yeah, there's phases. I don't know if it'll ever be done, but it's open. We've had, 5 or 6 retreats there now, and people can come now and actually, book individually if they want to just come and unplug for a week or 2 or even a month or longer and come and live in that space. And the community residence zone, people are now starting to design and build their homes there as well. So it's a continuous unfolding, but yes, it is open.
But the other thing is also, Regan, I wanted to ask you, you are, even though you didn't plan it, you're coaching in various different ways. What is the sort of most common questions that your one-to-one sort of clients sort of ask you? Is it more about the finances and money, or is it more about the internal work that they have to do?
My high-level clients, it's the internal work, because they know that, that's the 80%, right? They know that if they focus on that, that's going to amplify 80% of the results. So yeah, I would say 99.9% of the questions from my high-level clients are pieces on their inner world. And the odd, strategy question here and there. But they know that if they can shift their inner world, the 20% then comes obvious. In business, none of them are like, the 20% is the same, or we do these 12 steps, or the action they take in their business is springboarded off the internal work, and it then becomes obvious and clear what action they need to take from the 80%.
And with these sort of, especially with the high flyers, let's say, are they more sort of determined when it comes to, is it the frequencies that they want to tap into, or is it the personal work that they've had to do because their actual day job could be super stressful? For example, they're CEOs, so on and so forth, presidents. Because all of these sort of high net worth individuals, and they have a very different level of personal stress, right? So how do you work with those types of people?
Yeah, we work a lot with stress and a lot with looking at this, because stress is a reaction and stress is a response, right? Two people can be in the same scenario, and one can be super stressed about it and the other can just be navigating it, and that's a choice and that's a skill set. So when we unpack stress, there's a lot to look at, because underneath the stress, there's stories, there's beliefs, there's fears, there's all the things that we talked about earlier, and that then accumulates into a stress response, right? Versus someone else can clear out those stories, not have those fears, build themselves up internally to, for example, know that there's someone that can handle any situation under pressure, and they choose to believe that they thrive off pressure, and they choose to believe that pressure is an amazing thing because they're a diamond and that's how it's formed, right?
Love that.
Right? But you see the two different relationships versus like, oh my God, my life is so stressful, my work is the most stressful thing, I hate the stress, okay. Right? Again, you're creating that scenario. But again, if you get in there and reprogram this, the other person is like, stress, yeah, come at me, actually I'm going to create magic from that. And that's a type of navigation that can be trained internally and can be adapted. And there's many different ways to do this, from reprogramming the thoughts that we just went into, from clearing out the limits around it, even practically, like you might have heard about doing ice baths, for example, cold plunges. People do that because it creates a stress response in the body. And if you understand this, you can jump into the cold. Now, most people jump into an ice bath of, 2-3 degrees, it's cold, right? And they go into full stress response. Can you jump in there and just navigate it? Can you jump in there and be like, I'm really cold. This is super uncomfortable. I don't like this. Everything in me wants to get out, but I find my center. From here, I navigate. Breathe. Where's my breath, right? And then the person next, I'm splashing, freaking. The other person's there and they're in full navigation, right? So they find the center and they click into it. And the first time they do it, it might be a little hard, but they do it again. They condition themselves to navigate the stress, to be in control of the stress response, to actually use it to go boom into a more powerful place, right? Two people in the same environment, but two very different stress responses.
Just last year, I did a TEDx talk on a metaphor called the Vesuvius effect.
Yeah.
And it's basically where, specifically around the hospitality piece, doesn't matter if you're a chef, whatever it is, anything to do with hospitality. What a lot of us tend to do is, through many years, we bury in everything and bury it and bury it. And there was one particular incident which was very prominent during my kitchen life, that we have, kitchen is like an army, right?
Yeah.
So you have head chef, sous chef, chef de partie, which is like a supervisor, and then the commis.
Right.
So this supervisor, chef de partie, was berating this commie the entire day, the whole day. And I was watching it because I was a commie, and super stressful, Michelin-style environment. And at some point, something snapped in this commie. So what he did, very calmly, he took a beef tomato. You know how big a beef tomato is? They're really beautiful, juicy. Yeah. And he put it in the microwave. And I was like, is this a new technique? Is he going to make tomato sauce? And he put it in for 2 minutes at the highest possible temperature. Okay. After 2 minutes, very calmly walked over to this chef de partie and shoved this red hot tomato in this guy's face. Oh my God. But that was because that was a stress response.
Yeah, totally.
And it could be anything in hospitality that can basically make you explode.
Yeah.
And for me, I wanted to just talk about stress and wellness, as in, how do you feel we can best sort of control those high levels of stress? Because again, we know hospitality is a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
But during those times, yourself as with all the work that you do, what would you say is the best way to sort of control those situations?
Honestly, it's catching the stress in the moment, because most people aren't even aware that all of a sudden they have a stress response running through their system, right? So if you can catch it, like noticing your thoughts, noticing your shoulders tense, noticing your hands are clenching, right? If you can be like, okay, I'm getting a stress response. If you can see that, great. The second piece, it's going to sound basic and simple, but it's your breath.
Right.
It's how you breathe. Okay, when you're stressed, right? You're breathing up here. You're breathing from your chest up. You're breathing generally in and out of your mouth.
Right.
And this is heightening the stress all through your system.
Okay.
This is heightening the stress in your body. So if you can realize, like, okay, I'm in a stress response right now, and you can breathe through your nose, and then even out through your mouth, but in through the nose, out through the mouth, and breathing through your diaphragm. No one breathes with their diaphragm. Your diaphragm should push out when you take a breath in.
Okay.
When you breathe in, your whole lower belly should expand.
Right.
Right? But most people, if I say take a breath right now, people go, and they breathe totally from their chest upwards through their mouth.
Right.
But if you can breathe in your nose and allow that belly to expand, and then out through the mouth, even with sound. Now, you don't have to necessarily do this in the kitchen, but even at home, practicing this, I promise you, if you're stressed in the kitchen, you're stressed somewhere else too. It's everywhere, right? And if you can catch this, and if you can find your breath, just find your breath, that's going to change everything. I mean, that's the same as jumping into the ice. The main problem is someone else is cold, right? The other person. Okay, and finding the breath. From the breath, you'll then find your center. And it's retraining this, right? It's catching it, find your breath, catching it, find your breath, till eventually the stress response won't trigger, because you'll be naturally in that space. And then that's when your navigation. You're in the eye of the hurricane, right? The hurricane's still happening. You can't control that. You're in it, but you're right in the center. And what's in the center? Stillness, calm, navigation, clear thoughts, clear emotions. No, not that. Yes, that. Faster there. Slow that down. Better. Worse. Whatever, right?
Because that also brings me into the leadership piece, because you also do a huge amount of work on the leadership piece. Now, again, if I go to the upper levels of what we call the executive chef positions and the directors and that sort of thing, those guys have a very different level of stress, but they are more centered. How would you define, or what would be the best way, specifically for yourself, to become the best leader possible?
I feel that the best leader is someone that can really feel and connect with everyone else, and their priority is those people.
So they are of service to others.
Yeah. If they're connected in with, say, their team, and they know exactly what's going on, and the well-being and success of their team is their priority, the more that they get out of the way and it's less about them, the more successful a leader they're going to be. And we know this, when someone is a leader in quotation marks and they come into a space and they're right and they're bossing everyone around, they're doing this and that because they feel very important. You need to listen to me because I'm the leader. That's not leadership, that's ego. Right? So a true leader is someone that can come in and people almost won't even notice they're there.
Yeah.
Right? And all of a sudden the team's like this, everything's working, everything's clicking into place. It's so good. Everyone loves them. They're in great connection because it's not about them being the leader. In fact, if someone said, thanks for being such an amazing leader, they would say, no, we do this together. We're a team. That would be their response, not, haha, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm such a good leader. I've worked so hard to elevate to this role. Right?
But those are, again, and we have episodes previously where we called it the ego is the chef's worst enemy.
Yes.
Because you will notice, and you will 100% know people in the sphere who have huge egos and people in the sphere, same levels, and they have no ego.
Totally.
And people will navigate towards the latter.
For sure.
And you're absolutely right. And again, I used to work in places where, how can I call it? It's not celebrity chefs would be there. And they wouldn't be there necessarily for the prep, but the minute that person would turn up for the service, everybody's quiet.
Yeah.
And everybody's head down.
Yeah.
Then you'd have other places where they'd be like, and then stress and drama.
Totally.
And it was tough. And they, in turn, and what's really nice is that you're saying about being centered.
Yeah.
50% of those chefs were centered. 50% were stressed and, and it would spiral.
Yeah, totally.
And it was very difficult to manage. That's
crazy.
why I think the leadership piece is very, very important, especially when it comes not just hospitality, but generally you have to have that leader who is of service to everybody else.
Oh, absolutely. But, especially in the kitchens. Now, I'm obviously not a chef and there's very few environments like that I've physically been in. But, I do have some memories as a teenager. My uncle is one of New Zealand's leading meat chefs. And, he's been on TV and done all these things. And I remember going into some of his kitchens as a teenager and they're high pressure. He was serving 12-course degustation, amazing meals, and it's a high pressure environment, but everyone's laughing, everyone's happy, he's making jokes with everyone, this and that, he's drinking his beer, he's it's like
what a legend.
Right. And I just remember coming in and you feel the pressure,
right?
But everyone's having the best time.
How amazing is that?
Everyone's having the best time, and I just remember being like, these guys are joking, these guys are laughing, this and that. He's slapping this one on the back. This is how, like it was. I have these memories of this, but I also have memories being like, whoa, but they're working, they're
right,
full on, like, whoa, I don't want to get involved in any of this. This is like this is a whole situation going on here. But I could feel the joy and the play and the fun, and so it's a memory of his leadership that I have, and even hanging out with him. And, Wellington is a very small city in New Zealand where his restaurants are and were. And so we'd walk down the street and people would stop him. But everyone, hey, Rex, like everyone loves him, and it's just such a testament. Who he is in the kitchen, how I saw him at least, is exactly who he is hanging out on a Sunday with his family.
Oh, wow.
There's no difference.
How amazing is that, though?
Yeah.
And I love the fact that he was, you have that pressure, but also he was able to make everybody laugh during those times because, I just think there has to be a way in order for us to bring on our teams, get them all together, give them a huge hug without sort of creating the craziest stress possible, because it doesn't do them any good. It doesn't do the restaurant any good. The food.
People don't function under stress. And the food. Look, the food, again, is frequency. So the food is absorbing all of the emotional states of the people preparing it. Now, everyone's had a home-cooked meal from someone's mother or grandmother where you're like, I just feel the love in this food. Everyone, every single human on the planet has said, oh, but grandma's cookies, because they feel the love in the food. It's the same if it's been prepared by stress.
Oh, wow. So because that's what they say, right? Especially
Yep.
Italians. What's the secret recipe? It's love, amore, right?
Right.
But
now we can mock it and laugh about
but
it.
it's
But
true.
if someone's served a plate of food, no matter how beautiful it looks, even if they're not aware of it, if that's been prepared with an energy of stress, they are eating it. And I promise you, they're not going to rate that plate as high as it could be.
Yeah.
They're not going to say, oh, that was like the most amazing meal I've ever had. They may be like, yeah, it was pretty and it was nice and it tasted good. It was a great meal. But if they don't maybe even know, like, oh, this is full of stress, but it lowers the frequency of it and people eat it and they don't feel as amazing with it. So if you want your food to be like, wow, oh my God, this is the best thing in the world I've ever eaten, it needs to be prepared with that energy. We're all frequency, we're all information. There's no separation between it. The food is the frequency going into their frequency body. It's so important.
No, it's super important. And you're absolutely right. And even if it's the simplest meal on earth,
Yes.
it tastes absolutely incredible if it's been prepared with that frequency of love and wanting to give.
Look.
And it's a love language, right?
It is. And what an act of service for someone to prepare a meal for someone and give them medicine, because food is medicine, to give them food that they then eat that is going to nourish their frequency. What an act of service. What a purpose. What a mission.
What a gift.
What a gift. This is huge. So if someone's listening to this and they're in a kitchen, they're like, oh, but I don't know the right terms, but I'm just an assistant, whatever. Like, I do nothing. I just chopped a vegetable today. That's it. Yeah, that energy that you put into cutting those potatoes affected that person's life.
Right.
And did you affect them in a positive way? Or did you actually drop their frequency because you were so stressed out or your head was somewhere else? Right? All of this is interconnected. So what a gift if you were able to chop those vegetables so that they went on someone's plate and you elevated that person's energy and their frequency because you just put joy and love into it. Maybe it was a little stressful, but you chose to be in your center and navigate that. You just helped that person manifest easier. You just helped that person feel better, even if they don't know it. What an act of service. Everything's connected.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Now, Regan, the other thing I wanted to ask you is, so in my notes, I've got here, you're a global speaker, serial entrepreneur, best-selling author.
These all sound like
you have
very
the
large
nest,
titles.
and you're juggling so many incredible things.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it earlier. People will ask you, how do you do it? But for you, what's your biggest challenge when doing all of these things? Is it necessarily about managing time, having the right people in place? Is it about prioritizing? Because there's so many things that you're doing and they're phenomenal, incredible things. But how do you do it all?
Yeah, I think my biggest challenge is saying no to myself and my brain and my ideas. Really. Like every day I'm like, oh, I should do this. Oh, I'm going to create that. Oh, I think I'll start this company. Like I really need to take a seat sometimes and be like, okay, Regan, like where is that a priority? Is that the best thing in the world? I love the creation phase. I love the birthing phase. I love the manifestation of taking something that's an idea and then like, okay, let's now like get it out into the world. I love that. But then these companies and these missions, like they grow up and they become toddlers and then they become teenagers and then they require different levels of help and support and nourishment and all these things. So I think that's my biggest thing. I have 1,000,001 ideas as to how I want to help the planet every single day. And they're all great, but really, really what is the most useful? What's going to create the most impact? How can I be of the most service? And really making sure, I stay focused in that. Yeah, because I'm a creator that loves being in many different things.
So then for you, how do you stay focused and grounded?
I stay focused and grounded with my practice every day, which looks different every day, but every single day without exception. The minute I wake up, when you're kind of in that, consciousness of just coming into your body, you're like, oh, I'm in bed. Hi, right? When you're there, I always ask, what is my soul desire right now? What is my soul desire today? How can I nourish my soul? And that looks different. Sometimes that's like staying in bed for another 20 minutes and just like, I'm going to just like stay and rest another 20 minutes. Sometimes it's getting up, it's moving my body. Sometimes it's journaling. Sometimes it's being in stillness. Sometimes it's going to the sauna. Like it's all different things every day. But that as long as I do that, I can find my center. You know, I can find that place of navigation no matter what craziness then goes on the outside. That helps me come into that space that we're talking about. Yeah.
So then what does the future look like for you in terms of the work, the nest, potential books, more speaker gigs? How do you see it?
This plus more, basically. Yeah, I feel like my life right now is just in such alignment. Like there's not one piece of my life that feels like, oh, okay. You know, everything feels so good and so in alignment and so on purpose. So it's really the next level to all of that, you know, the upper limit beyond all of that, amplifying all of that. And for me, it's really amplifying the service. You know, it's like, okay, how can I serve at a bigger level? How can I help more people? And then from that place, the book or the vehicle or the
right.
new, you know what I mean? But it comes from there. It's like, okay, if I expand my reach, expand my service, expand my impact, well, then this makes sense. Oh, well, I'm going to start that. Oh, I'm going to write that book, right? Yeah.
Wow. So, Regan, we have now come to the quick fire questions.
Okay.
I've kept them, I think, very straightforward. So I'm going to start nice and easy. Okay. So are you sweet or salty?
Both.
Do you prefer spicy or pickled?
Both.
Oh,
I love food. Come on.
All right. Okay. So now these are, okay, first of all, will be for New Zealand. So I'm going to say pie or pavlova.
Oh God! Now listen, this is this is very difficult because I love pavlova, but my family, it was the Hillyer pies.
Oh.
I grew up in a pie family.
So it has to be the pie.
I have to say pies.
All right. So when it comes to Puerto Rico, ceviche or gallo pinto or rice and beans.
That's a tough one also, but I think gallo pinto. See?
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, normally we ask the chefs and hospitality, but I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
What is your go-to or favorite ingredient?
Favorite ingredient out of all ingredients?
It's a toughie.
Yeah.
It's a tough question.
Favorite ingredient out of everything.
You can choose whatever you like.
My goodness. Favorite meaning most useful, or
it could be most useful, the one that you love the most. Totally up to you.
You know, this changes, but right now,
yes,
I'm going to say saffron.
Oh, good one.
I'm going to say I'm obsessed with saffron right now.
Wow.
Saffron rice, saffron tea, saffron and rose.
Really?
Yeah.
Love it. Do you know, that's the first time we've had it on the show in over 100 episodes.
Oh my God, okay, amazing.
Love it. Yeah, okay. And then from right now, what would you say are your top 3 favorite cuisines to eat?
Oh, to eat. My goodness. I would say I love Japanese.
Oh, yeah.
This is really one of my core favorites. I have really recently been introduced to Iranian food. And I'm pretty fascinated with that. Like, they were putting lemon on their ice cream.
So beautiful.
It was incredible.
But it's amazing. Iranian food is incredible.
Incredible. And let's see, what else? I think just in general, you know, Middle Eastern or Arabic food, you know, I also really, really, really love. Yeah.
It's very clean, actually.
It is very clean. I like the cleanness of it. I also love Turkish food, like a lot of their breakfasts.
I love Turkish food.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's tasty and delicious and very comforting.
Yeah.
Actually.
But I think Japanese really wins in that first place. Like really good quality Japanese food, the cleanliness, the flavors, the meats, like, yeah.
Okay. Done. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you is, what advice would you give to 16-year-old Regan?
Tell her to chill out. It's all going to be okay. Like, just keep going, follow the flow. I'd tell her to, like, just really trust that things are going to unfold and trust in herself. You know, I think at 16 I had so much doubt around who I was, my life, so many things, like so many 16-year-olds, I think, you know. And I'd just whisper in her ear and be like, you got it. It's okay.
Now, if it's the first time anybody's sort of come across your work, where's the best place that they can find you in regards to socials?
Yeah, so you can go to reganhillyer.com, and then everything's under Regan Hillyer at Regan Hillyer, mostly my Instagram. But send me a message, let me know you came from the show. I respond to everything, and I'm in that DM, so yeah.
Now, Regan, the final thing I wanted to say to you is, during the lockdown, the world's lockdown, I'd never heard of podcasts in my life, and it was actually my wife Maria who got me into them.
Wow.
And she was telling me about, you got to listen to this podcast, and I was like, thinking about something else. And I heard the first ever podcast I heard was a Mind Valley podcast, because she was like, you have to listen to this. It's really, really important. And it was yours.
Okay.
And when I heard, and I sort of really wanted to understand, your voice really resonated with me, especially with your work on fear. It being in the back, but actually you have to allow it to propel you. Yeah. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because that was the first ever podcast I heard.
Wow.
And then in May 2020 was when I launched the Chef JKP podcast. So if it wasn't for you, for Mind Valley and the work that you guys are doing, and of course my wife listening to this, this show wouldn't be alive. So I just wanted to say really thank you so much for taking the time to be here today, because I know you're extremely busy. Thank you for all the work that you do, inspiring people, just being an incredible person. The coaching that you do, the manifestation, absolutely everything. It is absolutely vital. So just thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. And what a beautiful story. Like, you never know, right? You never know the ripple of impact that's been created. It's like anyone listening to this show, like sometimes you just open a door for someone walking through a building and you never know what that means for them, So it's such a nice reminder of the ripple that can be created. Thank you.
And that, my friends, brings season 9 of the Chef JKP podcast to an incredible close. A massive thank you to the phenomenal Regan for helping us at the end of this season and ending it on a note of inspiration. Her wisdom, energy, and fearless commitment to transformation is the perfect reminder that true wellness isn't just about what's on your plate, but it's about how you think, how you lead, how you love, and how you live your life every single day. This entire season has been about exploring many layers of wellness, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and each guest has left us with a powerful lesson to carry forward. A massive thank you to all of the previous guests who have featured on season 9. A massive thank you to our sponsors who give you this content for free. If you want to support this show, press that all-important subscribe button, which helps make the show bigger and bigger. It truly means everything to me and the wider community. And one last thing. If you enjoy this show or know someone you know who could learn from the guests, just share it. As you never know, these conversations might inspire someone to take action and become the very best at what they do. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. To all the listeners, people watching around the world, your energy, passion, your commitment to growth, and it's what fuels this podcast every week. Big love to you all. So until we meet again in season 10, food is memories.